This is part 3 of the series Behavioral Economics Basics, and today we will be learning about heuristics. Heuristics are basically mental shortcuts that allow people to make quick decisions without having too much information and it being overwhelming. So this is a very natural process and was part of human evolution. And overall, it's typically based off of past experiences and rules that people create for themselves. And even though this isn't necessarily the best solution, it can be enough in certain situations. So for example, if I have limited time and I have to make a decision, I can just use these mental shortcuts to help me. There are 4 subtopics of heuristics. The first one is representativeness. This means when people use shortcuts to make decisions based off of past events that are similar to traits with the current situation. What I mean by this is, for example, company A expands their product line and their profits increase. And a year later, company B expands their product lines as well. So based off of the similarities in this situation, which are they both expanded product lines, the analyst might think that because their profits increased, then the profits of company B might increase as well. The second one is anchoring and adjustment. This one isn't as common, but it can still happen. This is when someone begins with a specific numerical value and then keep on adjusting that number until the one they want is achieved. An example of this is if a supplier starts a negotiation with a very high price, way higher than the actual value of the item, and then keep on adjusting and bargaining until the price at their ideal price is reached. The third one is availability heuristics. This one is the most common one because it happens a lot. This is when people expect an event to occur again just because it has happened recently. An example of this is if the news reports that an airplane has crashed. So people might stay away from traveling by plane for a while just because they think, oh, well, recently it crashed, so I think that the next one's going to crash as well. Even though statistics show that the actual probability of a plane crashing is actually very, very low. Confirmation bias is the fourth one, and this is when people gravitate towards information that they agree with or ones that just fit their opinions, and they typically reject or just ignore the ones that ignore the ones that clash with their opinions. So an example of this is if I believe my coworker is lazy, and I'll probably only notice when they show up late or if they take a lot of breaks, and that'll reinforce my opinion of them. But I would ignore the times when they work really hard or the times when they offer to take up extra work because I don't agree with that part. This is very dangerous because only taking in specific information while ignoring the rest and having that information to kind of reinforce your kind of opinions will cause overconfidence, and that might cause irrational decisions. The last one is hindsight bias. This is when people convince themselves that they've accurately predicted the result of something after it has happened. This also causes overconfidence, and an example of this is if an investor sells a stock too late and as a result they lose a lot of money. So when they regret it, the hindsight bias causes them to convince themselves that, oh, I saw it coming. So rather than analyzing their mistakes or looking for ways to improve, they kind of just believe that, well, I knew it in the first place, so there's no reason for me to be able to do this, to have to do this. To kind of prevent this, predictions should always be written out or just objectively told to someone else or just objectively recorded so that it can be compared later and there won't be overconfidence. This is because the human brain can only handle a very limited amount of information, so people are forced to use these mental shortcuts to understand certain information without having it be too overwhelming. And also, it would be very difficult to make progress if every single detail was analyzed. This is very similar to mental accounting, but mental shortcuts that people use in heuristics might be entirely wrong, and it makes people more susceptible to biases, which leads to more irrational behavior. That's the end of this